Hello everyone, welcome to Polymath Park. I'm Patrick Compton. Allow me to present a short essay to introduce an idea that I'll be working with in the future on this channel called universal embodiment. This concept isn't really anything new. Spinoza and many philosophers have mulled over these ideas for centuries. But with the way technology is expanding these days, we have many more lenses with which we can appreciate such notions. For me, it's been very useful for reframing situations and one's overall life narrative in new ways that our species has yet to appreciate. We're always using frameworks and narratives in one form or another, and so far this one has served me best, and I've tried a lot over the years. Do bear with me, some of this will involve some flowery language to help translate these ideas into more modern ways of thinking, along with some rather complex terminology to deal with a rather complex reality. I am restricted by the use of words to convey the unconveyable. Upon reflection, the relation that I feel to every living organism, every bug and every tree, goes beyond my descriptive ability. I am an ever-changing yet stable assortment of molecules, and so are they. My integration with this human form in this incredible environment exceeds my ability to communicate. Words like rich, enveloping, humbling, enrapturing, and immersive really fail to do it justice. I am left in awe and often experience coursing waves of positively valenced paresthesia at the very limits of my neurochemical production. The paresthesia emerges from my adrenal glands and runs from head to toe, making my hair stand on end upon the remembrance and appreciation of our species' long history. I reflect upon our struggles and triumphs, and our current role on Earth, how we search for external, substantial sources of humbling, gratifying experiences, when the source is always there, and it always has been. It is my mission to convey this boundless gratitude that I now experience, through the embodiment of various modes of introspection, an embodiment of the universe itself, a concept that I hope to convey well in the following. Our capacity for examining our place in this world is expressed mostly through words, and through those words, we have contemplated our own contemplation and refined our notions into clear ideas. We think about thinking, and we talk about talking. We are the Homo sapiens sapiens, or the being that knows that it knows. We have an innate love for knowledge, a phileo sophia, and we seek to reach mutual understanding through the stringent definition of words. The successful application of this knowledge brings us into a state of what I can best relate to as Vervaeke's relevance realization, expressive abstraction of what we care about, the observance and expansion on what we find most salient to us. Basically, this describes finding and expanding on what is relevant to us, asking how our bodies, our environments, our thoughts, and our minds are relevant and different to those of others. This inherently increases what stands out to us in our everyday lives, making life more salient to us. This notion is unbounded and ever-blossoming as we commit our awareness to a previously unseen and underappreciated world. The universe has manifested an organism that contemplates its own life, its existence, morality, reason, and all of the fallacies in its logic. And we search for an explanation of our purpose, the answer to the mysteries of life and death. We call this most deep, pragmatic introspection into the human integrative experience philosophy. Let us seek to keep this crucial field of inquiry in our public education systems. We ride in the wake of the immortal coil. For so long have we remained ignorant of its complexities and magnificent designs. Only now does our species gain the privilege of introspection at such a high order. Only now, after countless millennia, has our biological imperative to abstract and extrapolate result in what we now call invention. Our innovations have produced telescopes and microscopes by which we may more fully appreciate and expand on our umwelt. This invites us to more fully embody the concept of the cellular union that we inhabit. At the Homo sapiens sapiens foundation, a molecular structure of intricate symbiosis makes us a singular, subjective, functional organism. Nature has rendered us a strong scaffolding that's fit for the world that we reside in. We now study deep into our anatomy and find countless ways of improving on our organic vessels. Only now can our species really begin to contemplate such a universal embodiment, the grand expanse of an engulfing cosmos that stretches to the farthest extent of our conception. It fills and exceeds the limits of our imagination. Only now does the majority of our species really begin to appreciate that everything that we know and love was forged in the belly of stars, coalescing across multiple billions of miles to eventually form the creatures that became us. We now hold all the world's knowledge right in our pocket. We can hold our fingers to the sky and realize that 100,000 galaxies fit behind our fingernail, and 7 octillion atoms fit inside of our hands. Only now do we begin to form terms like a microverse and a macroverse, in which we try to remain stable, homeostatically bounded, and balanced. We are the universe awakening to itself, now more fully able than ever to study, interpret, and appreciate its own baffling complexity. This form of introspection is best experienced through the study of what we call physics and biology. We have the privilege of witnessing art, the nectar of the human spirit, the signature of unique abstraction. Yes, I can in one breath call it an expression of the human spirit, and in another, as nature working through us deterministically, as Spinoza and other philosophers might describe it. Jordan Peterson describes art as pure abstraction.
Did he really just reference Jordan Peterson?
In this view, it is more so the subconscious absorption and conscious reinterpretation of the environmental and ecological influence that's being expressed and appreciated. This reinterpretation imagines creativity as more so emergent through the particular genetic restrictions, traumas, disorders, natural proclivities, and developed abilities that each expressor has acquired. It is nature and nurture's beauty and power displayed. It is physical determinism mixed within the cauldron of the human medium, an expanding extrapolation of our dynamic world. We are idea-making machines. We form participatory knowing through extrapolative abstraction. If we want to use more terminology, we can call this recursive extrapolation, because it is a process that wraps back into itself, and inherently improves itself in a dynamic system. We absorb content, mix it with our past, and repeatedly extrapolate from nature itself. It's a constantly active reinterpretation system. Now, from a psychotherapeutic perspective, we can look at this as what Gary John Bishop calls the sticky ball. We're constantly picking up content from our environments, and the content that sticks with us the most are the beliefs that align with our previously held narratives, that confirm them. These form what we call confirmation biases. Now, because we realize this happens, we can be forgiving of the many examples of this that we see throughout the day, and we should be on the watch for it developing in ourselves. The act of making art signifies the way that universal expressor embodies and interprets their life and their world. It offers us a glimpse into how that version of the universe experiences itself. The great artists and musicians dance on the cultural fringe, and it is those that push that fringe to its limits, challenging the edge of society's frameworks without fully breaking them, that create masterpieces. We use terms like art, music, and dance to describe the results of this beautiful exchange of emotion, interpretation, language, and expression that occurs not only between individuals, but also between the two hemispheres of the brain. We witness the founding of a participatory and perspectival knowledge, and form a procedural knowledge, an active engagement with the mind, body, and reality as we hone our craft. We practice our art, using our prefrontal cortex to deny certain ideas and pursue others, forging behaviors and muscle memory movements deep into our default mode network to perform later. As we perform, as we spin the fires of nature with skill and grace, we can think of the universe as anagogically flowing through us. We connect with the old brain by bypassing this most human of brain regions, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and engage the parietal and temporal lobes that we share with other organisms. We tap into our well-established, well-practiced default mode network pathways, and we call embodying this bypassing system the flow state. We recurrently extrapolate on our experiences, and transmute them into brilliant creations and displays of ingenuity, and we call the results of this process creative expression. We witness and appreciate individuality. We venerate people by how they speak, another signifier of their unique experience in their life's development and interpretation. We study the interactions between our species, its detailed, individual, and phenomenological experiences. We examine and try to improve upon its genetic proclivities and acquired personalities, its struggles to relate to and also not be affected by other experiencing and expressive organisms. We categorize the endogenous disordered states that our wildly complex minds naturally emerge into this world with as syndromes and disorders. We introspect upon our social adaptations, our exogenously developed disorders, and our accidentally acquired behaviors. We examine our ecologically affecting factors throughout the entirety of the human experience, in more relatable terminology than that of neuroscience and biology. We call this form of universal introspection psychology. We now introspect into one of the greatest mysteries of all, the evolutionary manifestation of the human mind. We approach the arrangements of these 88 billion cells from as many angles as possible, drawing from the revelations of physics, chemistry, biology, phenomenology, ophthalmology, and psychology to attempt such a monumental task. We can visualize the entropic constructions of the universe as superimposed on the layout of neural networks, portrayed in beautiful imagery and video. Now, to expand a bit into the realm of the woo, because we shouldn't just automatically shut out things because they sound mystical or spiritual, InterestingEngineering.com says, quote, "Within both systems, only 30% of their masses are composed of galaxies and neurons. Galaxies and neurons both arrange themselves in long branching filaments, and also, within both systems, the remaining 70% of the mass or energy plays a seemingly passive role, water in the brain and dark energy in the observable universe." End quote. It is interesting that we see so many correlations in these eventual manifestations of physics and chemistry and entropy. Given enough time, the entropic balancing out that takes place in the universe seems to eventually result in creating the most efficient and resilient patterns for distributing resources. Physiochemical laws have made brains and galaxies that have spatially arranged their constitutive elements into incredibly resilient, yet flexible and efficient structures. We can see that systems like trial and error, or natural selection, is active not only in the organic organizations on Earth, but in the amalgamations of the universe itself. Quote, "All things alike must be understood to follow from the laws of nature," end quote. This encourages us to pursue such parallels like these and embody states of experimental embodiment. As regarding the order of our perceptions and the manner in which they should be arranged and united, ideally, our mind will to the utmost possible extent reflect nature. And of course we want to live in harmony with nature to the furthest extent of our ability. To do otherwise would be to reject reality. We are humbled by our visual cortex, the intricate chain of neurons that organize what we see into comprehensive information. We receive light that is bounced off of objects and is filtered by the molecular structures on the surface of those objects to produce what we call color and texture. Millions of action potentials fire simultaneously through the hypothalamus to interpret shape and relatable orientations. Further along in the visual cortex, we manage to arrange a steady image instead of our vision bouncing along as we walk, like we see with a pigeon's compensatory system, where it manually holds the image stable and then resets each time it does a head bop. Although the software involved in that stabilization in the camera is very different than the software involved in this thing. We build microphones based on the vibrating drums inside of our ears, and isolate their polarity based on the pinna, or the shape of the cone of our ear. We can actually drop electrodes into the temporoparietal junction and the anterior cingulate cortex to propel someone's conscious existence out of their body and actually adjust the height of it as we please. This is called an out-of-body experience, and it often occurs in rich sensory detail, sometimes more real than reality itself. It's actually happened to me a number of times, and I can attest, it's pretty fantastic. We're on the verge of curing Parkinson's disease by creating artificial shunts, bridging the gaps in the brainstem to restore movement in the body. The universe now deeply examines one of its most potent examples of electrochemistry. We call this pursuit to more deeply understand this wobbly 2 pounds of meat in our skulls, neuroscience. The perspectives afforded to those lucky enough to have been exposed to and embody such fields of study naturally expand one's Umwelt. This inherently expands their capacity for reasoning and their salience landscape. Those lucky enough to have had a full, engaging education, with emphasis on a nuanced, heterodoxical heuristic, are those who are going to have more opportunities to get more out of life. Those taught to properly think for themselves have more opportunities to lead an increasingly enriching life. Those who are more unlucky and raised in an unhealthy ecological system may not develop the same well-honed abilities for approaching life from more healthy, helpful, non-judgmental, and non-reactive perspectives. Unhelpful living situations, peer groups, and lackluster education all limit the individual's ability to pursue productive actions and think and behave in ways that better themselves. We must also contend with the ancient behavioral genetic imperatives to imitate those who we spend the most time with, which is our monkey see, monkey do impulse, which we'll talk about in future videos. We should try to remember that these and many other factors exist before judging others' behaviors and choices, their occupational and lifestyle choices. We should try not to stereotype people based on their living arrangements or family structure. Now, there does exist a type of education that allows one to properly glean the entirety of the human experience and history, the beauty and the variety of world culture, the individual perspectives and stories in literature, and the abstractions and extrapolations emergent from the human consciousness in art, and the appreciation of the countless sacrifices made by the shoulders we stand upon. We call this form of education the humanities, and it may be our last saving grace in these rapidly changing times. It is through these various fields of study that the universe introspects itself. It learns its history, and it predicts its futures, now to a far higher degree than ever before. Spinoza spoke of the blessed life, a sense of true joy coming from a pursuit of knowledge, and not what he called the sad passions, for that is always the more reliable way of thinking. All else is ever in flux, or at least more so in flux. The endless access to knowledge that the universe now has allows it to further understand itself and this vessel in which it traverses this earth. Let us act as if the universe speaks through us, attempting through our limited senses to interact with and cooperate other versions of the universe experiencing itself. The notion that we are one universe greeting itself in many forms is expressed in the Hindi word namaste, meaning the light in me honors the light in you. Well, there's lots of interpretations of this word, but the farther back we go, the more respect and reverence for each individual this word seems to embody. In other words, the universe in me recognizes and respects the universe in you. The complex microcosm in me recognizes the incredible structures that make up you. Imagine if we brought such a concept into our everyday greetings and departures. Imagine if we really practiced Sonder and fully acknowledged our capacity for theory of mind. The ancient Greeks recognized and exemplified this notion with the word horeo, which has many translations. Most translations seem to emphasize seeing and seeking to understand others. Webster defines it as to see with the mind, to perceive, i.e. become acquainted with by experience. The emphasis being on consciously seeing and looking. While we move our eyes around, we can be volitionally looking for ways to relate to everyone and everything that surrounds us, naturally expanding what is most salient to us. We explored this concept in a previous video with something I called retrospective gratitude. Awakening to such a grand concept is not unlike a newborn baby opening its eyes to its existence, embracing its own emergence and the embodiment of a body, and the embracing of and reliance on another body, its mother. The sage adult recognizes this dependence, embracing their environment, and as the saying goes, the sage is to the adult as the adult is to the child. The unawakened adult mostly unconsciously pesters its mother, screaming and demanding and clawing at its resources just as it did as a newborn. This notion permeates many cultures. It is why for so long we've had this term Mother Earth. It is this beautiful ecological system, this all-embracing autopoietic sphere that houses our complexity. It is the deep insights revealed through these various fields of study that yield a sense of universal embodiment. This embodiment yields persisting feelings of gratitude and humility for me. It is those brief yet powerful moments of engagement and full connection with our environment that some refer to as enlightenment. And it is those rare moments that we feel a connection with another organism to be successful that we call love. This is why love transcends language. It is an unspeakable expression of the universe attempting to reach out and communicate and connect with itself and all beings in all forms. And from a religious perspective, this could be viewed as God living through you, or God as the universe, and being able to fully appreciate himself through this demigod version of himself, or however you want to look at that. It is a sense of relation in its most basic form. It exceeds biochemical sensory representations, and culture, and cognitive explanation. And it is why this message fails to fully convey my thoughts, as at best I can condense them into saying that from every fiber of my being that I love you. I see your microcosms and your struggles. I see your potential and your greatness. Namaste. So how can we go about approaching pragmatically embracing this way of thinking, this seemingly newfound ability for the universe to perceive and conceive itself and act with agency? We can start by asking, what would it be like for a universe to awaken to itself? And what should that awakening universe do with the body and mind that it inhabits? First of all, there would likely be something like an aha moment, as we talk about it in cognitive behavioral therapy. This is like an instance of instant realization. This is known as a transformative experience in philosophy, or even a transcendent communication with the higher being, as is seen in many theologies. These breakthrough experiences in consciousness often happen during heavy dosages of psychedelics as well. Quote unquote, "You are a thermodynamic, evolutionary miracle, bro. You are the utter embodiment of the universe experiencing itself." Okay. However you want to look at it, the universe has been blind and deaf to itself until it manifested you. Oh god, this is good shit. This notion, when portrayed this way, can sound quite hippie and woo-woo, but it's really rather profound, and if you'll bear with me, throughout this series we'll discover more ways to physically and rationally embrace this notion, and subsequently lead a life of fulfillment. And fair warning, I won't be trying to sell you my own personal perfect way of doing so. I'll be providing a myriad of different methods and perspectives for you to choose from to expand on yourself. This is the end of part 1. This video series will overlap with another project I'm working on concerning therapy practices incorporating gratitude, empathy, and CBT and ACT. If these subjects interest you, or you feel like you could use some clarity or inspiration in these trying times, feel free to give a brother a subby, and perhaps comment and share to get a good discussion going. Follow me here for more info, and to help me write my book.